Once again, the good folk at Lucid Eye Publications have approached me to review their work for their role-playing game of Immortal Beings of the Land of Eas, a game influenced by the poem Erlkönig by von Goethe, that encourages reflection on what it means to be fey and without death, save that death that is brought to oneself rather than occurring naturally. For more on this game, please check out Lucid Eye's website and my own review of the game itself. Links in the description. In this short series of videos, I shall be exploring further books from the Elfking line. Now here is something I can get my teeth into. I am a fan of solo gaming, although I do much prefer sitting around a table throwing dice at other people. Solo gaming, I think, enables perennial game masters to experience actual play from the other side of the screen, at least in part, and by doing so aid the growth of their own game mastering skills. It is also a form that lends itself to learning rules. Learn by doing is a great way to go about things, and the availability of solo scenarios makes a game far more accessible than is otherwise the case. So we come to the Prince of Ore, a solo scenario for the Elfking game. The adventure clocks in at 62 pages, including of covers, including two 2-page character sheets to record your character before the saga and after the saga, as in at the start of the adventure and after running through it. The first section of the adventure sets out what it means to use the Elfking rules within a solo setup, how to manage combat and other tasks and so on. This is all fairly straightforward and no drastic alterations to the rules are needed. Anyone familiar with solo play will be able to absorb these guidelines without difficulty. In fact, anyone not familiar with solo play will also have little difficulty. In either case, keeping the Elfking rulebook on hand is of great usefulness. The adventure is set for characters with some experience, and to that end, a handful of pre-generated characters of appropriate scope are presented. I initially felt that angling such things at such an experienced characters was a mistake, especially given my preamble here about solo play being a useful teaching tool, and that this is the first solo scenario Lucid Eye have presented for the game. However, as things unfolded, it turns out to be a good idea, as it not only introduces more of the game than would have otherwise been the case with beginner characters, but also enables more of the setting of Eas to be introduced. So in retrospective, I end up commending the choice. The adventure is split into 2 parts, not revealing any spoilers, both parts combined to work your character through a fairly epic saga. They are not separate adventures, but rather a convenient breakpoint in proceedings. There are several ways the saga can end, many in defeat of one kind or another, the ultimate goal being to arrive at one of the 2 epilogues, where your character has survived or not otherwise succumbed to the perils described within the adventure's paragraphs. And paragraphs it is. Like many solo adventures, the Prince of Ore uses a numbered paragraph format. If your choice is this, then go to paragraph number that. There are 195 paragraphs in total, making it of reasonable length. The saga is fun to play and captures the overall essence of the Elfking setting very well, in many ways better than the game mastered modules that Lucid Eye has released to date. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, while I am currently, intermittently, running through the RuneQuest Solo Quest adventures in a series of videos on my channel, please don't expect similar for the Elfking adventures. There is a very big difference between adventures released over 40 years ago and ones that are new and in print when it comes to spoilers. I don't want to potentially ruin your own experience with the Prince of Ore and any future solo scenarios Lucid Eye publish, and they promise more in the future within the Prince of Ore's pages by presenting a playthrough in that form. With that caveat out of the way, a few notes. As with all of Lucid Eye's Elfking books, the artwork is evocative of the setting. It helps you get into the mood of the scenario. The text itself has some typos, but none that are egregious, at least within the scope of an indie RPG release. Although, with the tools available today for proof-checking documents, I start with an expectation that there should be no such errors at all. But they don't get in the way of enjoying the adventure. The layout of the paragraphs is clear, so it's not difficult to find the relevant one to turn to. Statistics, where necessary, are also clearly laid out and easily referenced. Missing are the reference sheets that some of the Game Mastered modules include, and they are really handy when playing solo, so I would have liked to have seen them here. The text on art of the character sheets is a bit annoying, especially when using a grey pencil. The art itself is grey and obscures pencil marks a little. I would have liked to see these sheets being clean from art. The worst text on art issue in the book, though, is in the pre-generated characters page. The characters themselves are very hard to read, and I found myself having to copy the text from the page into a text editor in order to use it. I would have liked to have had completed before the adventure character sheets for each of the 6 pre-generated characters included, for ease of print and play straight from the PDF, instead of print blank character sheet, squint attempting to read stats, copy to sheet, avoiding grey background art of said sheet, and so on. That is the experience with this edition of the adventure. But once you're up and running, and hopefully not now afflicted with myopia, it's a great solo outing to run through.